Okay, B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to start the first Mishnah. Just one more comment on. It says Kol Yisrael Yeshem Chelek L'Olam Haba. So the Nefesh HaChaim, Chaim V'Lozhner, says a very important point, which at the beginning of the first Shah Nefesh HaChaim he develops on. He's talking about B'Tem Elokim Na'aseh Adam. What does that mean? And one of the main ideas he talks about, which also Derech Hashem discusses a lot, Ramchal was at your side today, by the way. Where Moshe Chaim Luzzatto was at your side today. Says that we know that what a person does down here affects upstairs, right? He talks about here how a person has to realize that his neshama is higher than any malach. The neshama got a direct line to the Pirkei Avot, and what we do, think, say affects, as it were, like shake a rope, affects upstairs and brings down shefa or chas from other things, all dependent on what we do, right? And he says in that respect, a person is greater than malach, because mitzad, the actual spirituality or ruchniut or koach or size or whatever, malach is way above a human being. He brings many sources, from the Zohar and other places, much more than a human being. Can't imagine this. Sarafim Macharot HaKodesh. We got no idea, right? However, a malach does not move. They're called omdim, right? They stay where they are. They can't go down the level they are, or in a higher world they're stuck. And they definitely can't affect a world above or a world below them. We know there's many worlds connected, right? Habriya, Asiyah, all this business. A person does. A person, right? Even though he's down here, can affect right up to the top. You understand? And affect all the malachim on the way. You with me? So in that respect, the person is much greater. So he says, when he's discussing this, he says that is an understanding when we say Kol Yisrael Yeshem Chelek Le'olam Haba. And he asks, why did he not say Kol Yisrael Yeshem Chelek Ba'olam Haba? Ever thought about it? I never thought about it. Yeah, it's amazing. There's a lot of things we're going to see over here in today's Shiur, Amit Hashem, how the one, we're picking up on a letter. Why this letter, not another letter? That's the Torah Kedosha, right? Why did it say? It should say Yesh lo chelek ba'olam haba. There's olam hazeh, there's olam haba. All right, we discussed in the past the Ramchal again, Derech Hashem, right? Calls what we call olam haba olam neshamot. You with me? That it's something which exists until olam haba. The Mashiach is going to come, and it'll be this world, right, with Tchiyat HaMeitim, etc. But this olam neshamot, whatever exists now. It's here, no? Do you know what I mean? There's something olam haba, there's Gan Eden, whatever you want to call it, it's here. So you say Kol Yisrael when we hear Yeshem Chelek Ba'olam Haba, something which exists, this thing called olam haba, right? They have a chelik in it. It doesn't say that. It says Le'olam Haba. You know why? He says Kol Yisrael Yeshem Chelek Le'olam Haba in what's going to be, not what exists now, because he creates his olam haba with his own actions, or the opposite Gehenum. The Gehenum is his own actions that are punishing him. It says in the pasuk in Ishaya, Ki yasrech ra'atech. The Yisurim come from the bad. I mean, not that the bad. The Yisurim come from the bad. The person did not against Ratan Hashem. So Yisurim or in Gehenum, that's just coming. It's a direct result. You with me? So it's not there's olam haba, and we're trying to get into that. No, le'olam haba. Kol Yishem chelek. They have a chelek in what's going to be, meaning because he's the one who's making what's going to be. Yesh lo chelek in what's going to be, because he's creating it. You get it? He's creating his own olam haba with your good actions. You're creating your olam haba, right? And that's the whole thing. It's not like we're not saying now. You do things and you get what's the name? Wait, that's a separate point. That this point. You hear what I'm saying? It's clear.
You get a space over there, rather you get.
Right, you get space. You get a space in the meterage. You know what I mean? How many square feet in olam haba? Let's get it, and you'll be zochet to a certain plot that exists over there. No, you are building now your plot. You're building your house there. You understand? That's how it goes. When we said the mashal, I think once before, I think I mentioned it. No, I saw this Yitzhak Fanga, from Hidabrut. I think he brings down a mashal of a person who was he was a builder, a kablan. He was a very good carpenter, in a place where, let's say America, whatever, they build, wood houses. Do you know what I mean? He was an expert, beautiful houses. And he was nearing retirement, and this kablan who employed him to make lots of houses, and he was an expert carpenter, etc. Blah blah. He said to him, do me a favor, I want you to build me one more house. And he's like, he was really a bit older and this and that, and he couldn't be bothered anymore. Do you know what I mean? So he thought, whatever, he cut corners, he bought cheap materials and this and that, and he built, it was all right. You know what I mean? Nothing major. He built much, much better houses and nicer houses. And then the kablan comes in, this guy's worked for him for years, he says, here, Joe, you know what I mean? You did such a good, you worked so hard your whole life, here's the keys, this house is yours. Get it? You spaced out?
I missed.
No, he said, well, he's building, he told him, he employed him, he was just being employed, and he's going to get paid for whatever to build his house. It was the last house he was going to build because he was going to retirement. And so he cut corners and built cheap stuff and everything else. And when he came to the end, the kablan says, here, it's a present. And he gives him the keys to the house. And the guy's kicking himself, do you understand? Had he known that he was going to never live in his house in his retirement, they would have built the best house he ever did. That's a very strong mashal. That's what we're talking about now. In not what's existing now, you can work and you get a bit in it. You're building towards your olam haba. It's up to us. You know what I mean? So it's worth investment, do you understand? The more you put in, the bigger the house you get. It's finished, simple as that. Anyway, okay, I thought that was an important point to speak out. Okay, the first Mishnah, let's go for it. Moshe kibel Torah misinai umsara Yeshua lezakenim zakim neviim masruha la'anshe knesset gedola. הם אמרו שלושה דברים, היו ומתנים מדים, והם עידו תלמידים הרבה, ועשו סייג לתורה. I don't think we're going to finish the Mishnah today, I hope. First thing, Moshe kibel Torah misinai. Grammatically, it should be, number one, why misinai? I mean, from Hashem. Very good. Also, if you were very from Sinai, you say that the Lashon HaKodesh should be b'Sinai. Sinai. You didn't get it from the mountain, you got it from Hashem. So if you're saying me, so say me Hashem. If you want to say at the mountain, say b'Sinai. B'manoshach. You understand? It's supposed to be. Also it says Moshe kibel Torah, and then he masara, he gave it over to Yeshua, and Yeshua gave it over to the Zakenim. So be consistent. Yeah? That Moshe kibel Torah mi Sinai, Yeshua kibel mi Moshe, and then we kibel. You know what I'm saying? Why? Yeah? I understand. It could have said Hashem Masar Torah Moshe, but it didn't. It's a Moshe Kibel. So once you started like that, carry on. Each one received it from the other one, right? Yeah? Fair enough. Okay, so and again, when it says, Anshe Knesset Gedolah, so let's take a bit of history. First of all, the Rambam and others all write, Rabbi Yonah writes, that we have to realize about Tanura, why do we start off Pirkei Avot with this? We mentioned this earlier when we were talking about why is it called Avot. We said Avot because it's going from one father, as it were, the head of the generations, like the leaders without the fathers of the generation. It's going back in the chain to Har Sinai. So even though this is all full of midot and musar, and you might say they're all Greek philosophy and this philosophy, the Italian ethics, I don't know what everyone is, yeah? And they might be similar to a certain extent, so that we understand the Torah, we understand, whatever, Issa v'heta and Chalabasa v'chalav, obviously this is godly laws, but ethics, okay, right? Moshe kibel Torah misinai. It's all from everything. Everything is misinai, right? Like we said last week, Bahar Sinai. We didn't pay Parsha Bahar. We talk about Shemitah. The famous Rashi says, Ma'in in Shemitah etzel Har Sinai. Why does it say this is what Moshe got at Har Sinai, and he talks about Shemitah, and he didn't get everything else at the Har Sinai? He got Kol Torah Kula. We just said now, Kibel Torah, and Midrashim and the Gemara says Moshe received everything. Medrash even says Afilu Masha Talmid Atid Lechadesh. Even what a Talmud in the Cheder in Shiva Ketana in our generation is going to say some Chiddush the Magishi didn't think. Everything was given to Moshe Rabbeinu. Everything. Torah Shebechtav, Shebal Peh, Midrash, everything was given to Moshe Rabbeinu. We won't go into now if that's the case. So, you know what I mean? So how comes Rabbi Akiva said this and this one said this? It was all given to Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Yeah, it's confusing. But whatever, it was given. Everything was given over in a certain form, including everything. And we have to realize that including this, Avot and all the midot, because Derech Eretz Kadman Torah, all the midot is everything, and all the Musa and all the way to behave is also Torah Misinai. It's all Torah Misinai. Don't think, for a second, this is like Musa, it's not really Torah. No, it's Torah. Yeah? It's Torah. That's number one. The second thing is, Rabbi Yonah points out, the Rambam in his Hakdamah says, we have to realize, that everything was given from generation to generation, until the Stimat Talmud, and there's never been a break in the chain. Rabbi Yonah is interesting. He writes. He was the one Rishonim from 800-900 years ago. He says, and one the Stimat Talmud after the Gemara was written down, then it was the Savraim, the Goanim, Ad Hayom Hazeh. He's talking about the time of Rishonim. Now it's a Kohen, and then the Achronim, the Achrei Achonim. It's been carrying on. It hasn't finished. You understand? It's a Masorah that's going back from Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay. So when it says Moshe Rabbeinu Kibem Torah Sinai, why didn't it say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like you said? So one pshat, forgive me if I don't remember who's what, because had to go to parents evening, I didn't manage to write everything down. Who said what? I saw some in Ma'am Noah's quoting, I didn't manage to see all the Ma'am Mekomas. One is that it's, we know it came from Kodesh Baruch Hu gave the Torah, right, to Moshe Rabbeinu. That we know. Why did the Tana say Misinai? To teach us another lesson, Agav, by the way, that why was it that Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that was Zocheh to get the Torah? Because Misinai. Like we know, we're coming up to Mitzvah next week, Shavuot, right? Why was Sinai chosen? Why not Har Kamel, Har Tavor? Because they're bigger mountains. And they all came running up. Should be given on me. I'm bigger. And Har Sinai was lower. It was humility. And that's why Hashem gave the Torah on Har Sinai, because it was humble to teach us, right? That the Torah only resides in a place of humility. And we know that Moshe Rabbeinu was Anav Mikol Adam, right? And that's why he was Zocher to what he was Zocher. Therefore, Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai. You know why he reached the Torah Misinai? Why Moshe Rabbeinu? Because Misinai, because he was Anav, like Sinai was Anav. Yeah? So that's one answer. Another answer is, another thing, why it says Misinai. Once we said that, that explains why it says Misinai as opposed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We say grammatically it should say Besinai. Why not? Why Misinai? With a mem, he didn't get it from Mount Sinai. He came out Mount Sinai, and we're saying, okay, we're discussing Mount Sinai because of the humility aspect. So one pshat was a remez that it means Misinai, that it was the remez to the 40 days and 40 nights that he was at Har Sinai. Yeah, it's a remez to the thing. Me Sinai, Mem Sinai, meaning 40 days at Mount Sinai. It's a remez, a cute remez. Now, we said, why does it say Moshe Kibel Torah and then Sarah Yeshua, etc.? So again, I can't remember who says what. I have to forgive me. Next week I have it Masuda. I have to say B'Shem Amro. You understand? That's one of the Memchet Kinyanim. It says in Perek Vav, the 4 and the 48 Kinyanim is to say B'Shem Amro. That it's the when you receive something, when you makabel something, the connotation is not everything. And when you give something over, everything is given over. So Moshe Rabbeinu, however great he had the Mem Tet Sha'arei Chokhmah. The highest level, Nun Sha'arei Chokhmah, even Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have. There was a level even Moshe Rabbeinu didn't get, believe it or not, you understand? The Nun Sha'arei, Kedusha Chokhmah, he did not have. Hence, Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai, right? It wasn't it was everything, but there was a level, you understand, that even Moshe Rabbeinu did not get. However, when Moshe Rabbeinu gave over to Yeshua, he gave over everything that he had. And Yeshua gave over everything to the Zakenim. Get it? So Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai, as much as he could Mikabel, like a Kli, he receive as much as it's big, how big it is, you only pour in as much as the size of the Kli. So he received as much as he could receive, but he gave over everything that he had. Follow me? Yeah? Okay.
So not Masar Moshe because Moshe...
Yeah, because Hashem did not give over even to the highest. Okay, fine. Again, not this chasra means that we said, not taking away from the fact that Kol Torah was given over, but within there's levels in quantity, but the quality, the highest thing, which we have no musar what that means at all, but really at all, we have no clue what that means, but that's the connotation. Yeah. Now, Yeshua, wherever the Mefarshim being psukim, how we know this Messiah Yeshua Zakanim, etc. The Zakanim lived, we said, right? They were the same as Canim. It says, right, in Yeshua of Rav Genish, the same as Canim, Shivim Zakanim, at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, they were still alive after Yeshua passed away, right? And Yeshua gave it over to the Zakanim. The Zakanim then came the Tukufad and the Nevi'im, right? And Shmuel HaNavi, whose your side is on Thursday, by the way. I just heard it on something today was Imam Chal, and Thursday night, Friday, Kafchet, Iyah is the Yotzat of Shmuel HaNavi, apparently. And we know about that's what I heard. To Shmuel, Unuvim Asur Anshe Knesset Gedolah. Who were the Anshe Knesset Gedolah? The Great Assembly, the 120 elders of the Great Assembly, were those who came back from Galut Bavel with Ezra HaSofer. Right? Yeah? Right. And we know Ezra HaSofer, with them was Chagai, Zachariah, Malachi, and Nehemiah. They also came with the Malachim. So we know the Anshe Knesset Gedolah were the end of the Nevi'im. So when it says, V'zekenim Nevi'im Asur Anshe Knesset Gedolah, that was the overlap between the end of Nevuah and the Anshe Knesset Gedolah. There was some Nevi'im, still Nevi'im in the Anshe Knesset Gedolah, right? Okay. Now, so now it says like this: Hem amru shlosha dvarim. They said three things. Now, obviously, they said many things, right? They weren't the only three things that Anshe Knesset Gedolah said. As I think the Yavitz, the Yaakov Emden says in all of them, everything we're going to see, Hu Haya Omer, was the main message that Tana had to his generation. He said a million things, of Divrei Torah, but the message, the main guiding thing he wanted, for that generation was what he said, right? So this, they said many things, says that it's the Bartanura, but he says these three things have him the Kiyum HaTorah. This is what is going to enable the Torah to keep going in all the generations. That's quite important. Right? We want to keep the Torah going until Mashiach comes. So these three things were said over because these were the foundation for the continuation of the teaching and passing on of the Torah. Right? So that's why they said, this is brought down as what they said. This was the guiding light for them in their generation. Hevu mitunim badin. Mitunim is a loshon to be slow. Badin, in judgment. Right? And why is that? Because to the extent, the Mefarshim Ben Yonah says that even if a person, a judge, a dayan, has a din that comes to him, din mamanot, and he knows, whatever, not the first time he's had it, don't jump the gun. Even if you still have had this tons of times, this case, the classic case of shchenim and this and other, hevu mitunim badin. Chew it over, think it over, speak it over with other danim, look it up again, etc., etc. Don't ever jump. Right? Because we know that a person can make a mistake. Right? A person is not, he makes mistakes, might have forgotten something. This has a nuance in this thing over here which may have changed the halacha. Don't ever jump, be very, very slow to come to a psak. Even in Mamonot, Kavachom, in the Sanhedrin, right? Mishnah said when it comes to Dinin Nefashot, when you had 21 dayanim, it wasn't a 3, but 3, it was 21. And you have to have the rov of 21. It has to be, they have to go, and then when they paskin, they can go back the next day, so on, realize it's something they didn't realize. You have to be very, very, very careful with these things. That's number one. Number two, v'he'emidu talmidim habe. You should stand up many talmidim. So here this expression of v'he'emidu, make them stand, make many talmidim stand. Just mean you should teach many talmidim, right? One of the Mefarshim explained that this is the machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel in Avot Rabbi Natan. That Beit Shammai said, which is similar to Rabbi Gamliel in Masechet Brachot, there's a maaseh like that, you can only teach a Talmid Hagun. You'd be very, very picky. You Talmidim are, check him out, do it birum like a shidduch, This and now before you let him in the base medrash, you start teaching him. Do you know what I mean? Exactly, no, but, or like the Gemara Brachot, he said, right, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said, Tochok boro. The person had to be, 100%. How he looked on the outside and how he behaved, that's how he was. Perfect tzaddik, he can come in the base of medrash. Right? And then when he changed, when Yeshua came in, whatever, Rav ben Azariah, then said, they added 400 benches to the Bet Midrash when this rule got banned, a new reformer, let them in. But come in, and it said on that day, and in Masechet Idiot of Edut, Loshen Edut, many halachot when it chadshu, when came that day when so many talmidim came in and they were all talking and learning on the rest of it, right? And even though it said he saw in a dream and really he got chalisha sadas, Rabbi Gamliel got upset, so maybe he made a mistake. He did wrong all this time, and when we showed him in the Shemaim, he was right, whatever. But Beit Hillel said you have to learn as many because if 1,000 come in, maybe one will come out as the Gadol Ador and be a Dayan in Av Beit Din, whatever it is, right? If you have only 500, you're reducing your chances, right? Of who's going to be able to come out. And even if you only have 2, who's going to be, which one's going to be the right one? So the more Talmidim, the better. That's one understanding of it. You understand? They just bring as many as possible. Another pshat I saw, a beautiful pshat, again I don't remember where I saw it, who said what, was that it's very important to have Talmidim Harbe and to teach as many people. It doesn't matter, even if they're Balabatim, they're going to go out, and work after learning just for a bit and whatever it is, do you understand? But unless you have everyone, there's tons of Talmidim, which is what we're trying to do in the last few generations. The Gedolim decided, without going into the history of the Chassidut and the Litvaks and there's so many Amaratzim, right? There was a very bad situation before Baal Shem Tov came around. There were tons of Amaratzim. Some of them couldn't even read and write. Forget about the women. Do you understand? The Mamush didn't know anything, right? Like the times in the Gemara, they didn't know anything. Forget Halachot. They could barely daven. They didn't know anything, and there was a huge gap between the Talmidei Chachamim and the Amcha, right? And by having Talmidim Arbe, so then you're not just that. You're going to have as many people in the Jewish people who are going to, know something. They're also going to have the chashivut of the Torah, and that's more than that. That is more important in a certain extent than anything, because once the whole base, the majority of the Jewish people have been the Talmud at some point, right? And they've learned, even if they learned a basic amount, but they were in the cheder, they were in some sort of yeshiva, they had a rebbe, etc. So nothing became with them, you want to call it, it's not really the right word, in the Torah world, not Dayan, not Magid Shir, it doesn't matter. But then the Dayanim and the Rabbanim and the Rosh Yeshiva and the Gedolim are going to be all listened to and respected, and they can carry on passing the Torah from door to door. Even if you can have the elite, as it were, who are the Chachamim and know the Halachot and the Rosh Yeshiva, but then everyone underneath is going to listen and toe the line. You with me? Because Hemidu Tamid Arbe. If we didn't do that, and you just went for the best, the elite, so everyone else is over here, and not only did not know, also respect for the Chachamim they don't have, because they were never brought up for the chashivut and the gadlut of what it means Torah. You following me? So it's very important in that aspect. Now on the word v'he'emidu, the Tosfot Yom Tov says, right, just find it now. Right, one pshat is, they say over here that it's talking about how Talmidim used to stand or sit at the time of learning, whatever. 1 second. 1 second. Yeah. Right, yeah. Chalish, the generation got weak. Yes, I had to sit down. For me to remember, yeah. So the Tosfot Yom Tov says, it should say, He'emidu Tamid Arbe. It should say, V'limdu. You should teach Tamidim Arbe, right? What make them stand? So he says, Achen nirli, kach nirli, Shu omer ve'emidu Tamidim laha'amidam al raglehem bal yamotu. Klomar laha'amidam al raglehem ba'havanat amitata shel Torah. Shezeu ha'amidah v'kiyum. He says, we know sheker ein no raglaim, the famous thing, sheker no raglaim. That's something which is true emet, right? The lot is aleph mem tet, where I have two legs and the mem has a base. The taf has thing. It's firm. Sheker is a shin, right? It's wobbly. Hemidu tamid arbe, make them stand, meaning make sure they understand it. They got the emet. Everything's clear. One is in terms of their own right. Even when you're not there, they're going to carry on. You make them upright. They can carry on on their own, and also they make sure they're standing firm. That they got clear. They got the Torah emet. There was nothing not misunderstood over here, which is the element of sheker. They got the wrong pshat. Hemidu tamid arbe. Yeah, follow me. And then va'asu sayag the Torah. You should make a fence around the Torah. What does that mean? What does that mean? So that means that basically, all the Rabbanan, the Takanot Chazal, right? All the Rabbanan on Shabbat, not to ride a horse, all these things, because you might end up taking off a branch, all these things are Dini Rabbanan. And here the famous Rabbeinu Yonah talks, like he says in Shari Tshuva, Shah Gimel at the beginning, that he says, there's Rosh Chazal, Chavivin Divrei Sofim, Yenesh of Torah, to a certain extent, the Dini Rabbanan are more Chaviv than the Torah itself. And he says, why? We say in the Pasuk every morning, Rotzeh Hashem et Yire'av. Hashem wants those that fear Him. Why? Because when a person has Yirat Shamayim, he said that's a very, very big fundamental in the kiyum of the Torah. And all the Dinei Drabanan are an expression of Yirat Shamayim. They all did it as a fence around to safeguard the mitzvah. Don't ride the horse, nothing wrong riding a horse, but you might break off a branch and break Shabbat. And Mechal Shabbat, right? So they're all there to safeguard you from the Torah, because we have Yirat Shamayim, and we realize all the Tarag Mitzvot, a life and death, not just in this world, right? In all worlds, and we said before the beginning, right? Our actions affect everything, right? That's a Jewish person with his Neshama Gvura, and the Chedek Kamimal. Therefore, the Siyag the Torah is very, very important. One, just to protect the Torah in itself, right? And the Rebbe says even stronger than that. He says if a person just keeps the mitzvot and not the siyagim, it means there's something wrong over him. Meaning he's doing it because he's happy to do the mitzvah. He's not actually a yirat shamayim that he realizes this is life and death. If he keeps the drabanan, that proves the guy is a real guy, because he's bothered. Do you understand? No, it's the other way around. Oh, it's only drabanan. You know, it's only drabanan. No. That's everything. If you speak like that, that means then even what you do keep is, do you understand? Is not so That's why it's very important. Now, I think we'll finish here, because I don't want to miss out of it when we finish. Just remind me, first I have to say the Mar Makomot, try and remember exactly who we said, and also there's a Tiferet Yisrael that learns these three things, referring to every individual. Because what we said now was Anshe Knesset Gdolah, as it were, was saying to the Chachamim of the door, the Dayanim, judge slowly. Hemidu Tamidim Halbeh, that's talking about the Chachmei Ador in yeshivas, right? Or Chadarim, Menal v'Cheder. And Vasu Seag Torah, that's Chazal, making takanot. That's nothing to do with us, with a regular Joe, regular guy. So we'll see the Tiferet Yisrael, Mitzvah next week, when we do, we'll go over a bit, and we'll mention that. He said it refers to everyone. We can learn this Mishnah referring to every single individual.